Hi, everyone, and welcome to Monday Night Lives in Launching Life with Autism, our Facebook group. This group is for parents who are new to autism, who are struggling with the chaos that autism has brought to their lives. If that sounds like you and you want to get calm, understand, and connect with your child, then you are in the right place. And I'm your host, Erin Porter. I went through this same chaos during 28 years in education, and now I'm on a mission to help parents get through it too. What I learned and implemented in those 28 years has helped hundreds of parents and teachers calm the chaos that has come with autism. Now, I'm just checking to see. It says I have a comment here, but I'm not seeing them. Stacy, there it is. Hi, Stacy. Thanks for saying hi. Before we get started, if you've popped on, say hello because Facebook tells me how many people are here, but it doesn't tell me who is here. So I love it when you say hi. Thank you. Today we're discussing how do you know if you are in crisis? Because living with autism doesn't have to be hard. Hi, Anna. Thanks for saying hi. I want to clarify something too before we just get started. Um, I'm talking about being in crisis. Hi, Teresa. Not being in a crisis. When I was working in schools, hi, Johnny. Hi, Jennifer. When I was working in schools, there were crises that popped up all the time, and immediate action was needed to be taken. So, like once I ran through the building because my walkie talkie told me that someone was choking. Um, I've called 911 before. I've supported students who are trashing rooms or whose blood sugar is dropping. Um, I've been in all kinds of crises in my personal life and in my professional life over 28 years in education. That's not what I'm talking about. Today, I'm talking about existing in a constant state of being heightened. Like, hi, Anand. Um, if you're living constantly with a lack of sleep, constant worry, endless trial and error to solve problems, being constantly stressed or on, and thinking that this is just how it has to be because you're living with autism, that is living in crisis. I've supported a lot of parents over the years, and many of them didn't even realize they were in crisis until things got better. And they looked over their lives from a different perspective, a perspective they didn't even at the time know was an option until they changed what they were doing. That's why I'm asking this question, because we've got over 4,000 parents in this Facebook group, and I see people who are living in crisis, and I would like to help you. So, how do you know if you're living in crisis? Because if you've lived in crisis for a very, very long time, it becomes your normal. And you begin to think that that's okay. It's just is what it is and how your life is going to be. Does that sound familiar? You can just type yes if it does. Um, the truth is, you don't have to live like that. But if you don't know or see that you're in crisis, then there's nothing to fix, right? If living with autism is hard and you're trying to fix things all the time and they're not getting fixed, then you're in crisis. I want to tell you about some families who, from our group, who have reached out to me, who I've helped. Each one was in a different level of crisis, and they knew they needed help because they reached out, but some didn't realize how badly they were living in crisis until things got a lot better. And I'm wondering if you can see yourselves in any of these people. So I'm just going to call them family A, family B, but excuse me, family A. Um, Mom reached out to me a few times initially because mostly she was looking for help with toileting. Her son was 5. Um, what she didn't realize was that the life that she was living wasn't okay. At first, she just wanted to solve the toileting issue. It wasn't until months later, when toileting was still an issue, that we had a Zoom call that she was sobbing. She was going on vacation, and she told me that she wanted to get kidnapped because what the kidnappers would do to her for the rest of her life would be better than living at home with her child with autism. This mom was living in crisis for years, and she didn't tell anyone that it was that bad until our Zoom call. She didn't tell anyone that her son wouldn't sleep, that he was aggressive, that they had to lock themselves inside their home so that he wouldn't run away naked, um, or that he would punch the walls or hurt other people or go to the bathroom on the floor. Um, and she thought that this was the life that she had to live because her child had autism. She tried to keep it under wraps, but it was obvious to friends and family and school and neighbors. Um, they just didn't know how much of a crisis she was living in, and she really didn't know until that Zoom call. Another family, mom reached out because her 3-year-old son was running the show. She and dad, they couldn't do anything together. Hi, Sharon. Even sit on the couch, they couldn't do that together because their 3-year-old son wouldn't let them. His behavior was setting the tone in the house and at daycare, um, which was stressful for them. Each of the parents spent their day trying to avoid meltdowns, um, and he was demanding attention all the time, and he was aggressive at daycare. These parents didn't know they were in crisis. They just thought that this was how it was going to be because their child had autism. They accepted life and settled into a routine that was focused on just keeping the peace every day. They thought that his defiance at school, at daycare, aggression and possessiveness of mom at home was just the way that it had to be. There was stress with coping and their relationship, but it really wasn't all that obvious to other people looking in. A different kind of crisis, but it was there all the time. In another family, the child reached out, or the parents reached out to me because they said their child wasn't learning. And he wouldn't use the toilet independently, so mom was going to school every day to take him to the bathroom. They knew he was smart, like gifted smart, um, but he was not interested in learning and would never accept their help. They thought they had a child whose intelligence would be wasted because his behavior was getting in the way of his learning, and that because of autism he wouldn't be able to learn. The crisis around this family seemed productive because mom was always on it. She was solving the problems, being proactive, finding therapies, finding solutions, but nothing ever worked. So mom was in this constant state of, how am I going to solve this problem? One last family that I'll tell you about. spent years taking their child to therapies, um, trying to solve each problem that popped up with a different strategy, different professional or therapy, like SLP for communication and OT for fine motor, dietitian for eating. They said that things felt okay. They were just super busy, and their child made really little progress over the years. But there were small gains, so they kept going and they settled into this belief that this is just how it is with autism. This crisis was quiet. The parents weren't happy, but they were settling for a life that they thought that they had to live. All of these families thought that the way they were living was just how it was going to be forever because they were living with autism. They thought that autism had to be hard and they were going to struggle forever. The thing they all had in common was they each tried to tackle their child's issues separately. They all had different therapies and strategies for each problem. They all had appointments all the time, and their lives were consumed by autism because they loved their child and they wanted to do everything they could to help their child. So, my question to you: how do you know you're in crisis? My answer to you is if autism is consuming your life, you are in crisis. If you are consumed with appointments, strategies, therapies, meltdowns, routines, managing emotions, feeling stresses, losing sleep, worry, and so much more, then I'm asking you, is any of that solving your problems? Is anything working to create significant or even massive change? I want to leave you with something to think about. Um, it's about beliefs. What is your belief about how life has to be if you're living with autism? And does that belief have you stuck in crisis? And by belief, I want you to think about the strategies that you're using and if they're working. Are they creating massive change and making life for everyone, including your child, calmer, easier, and less stressful? Here's what I mean. Just one little example. There's so much discussion in our group and in other groups as well around what to do about sleep and children who are waking at night. Parents and children are exhausted. So parents are looking for solutions. There's tons of them. Melatonin, other drugs, routines, different types of beds, blackout curtains, noisemakers, lullabies, bottles, soothers. It goes on and on. There was a post this week in our group from a mom whose daughter is up at night and noisy, and the downstairs neighbor is banging on the ceiling when the child gets noisy during the night. That's so stressful. Can you imagine that on top of the lack of sleep for you and your child, you have to answer to the neighbor who's cranky because they aren't sleeping as well? That's crisis. Here's the shift that I'd like you to look at with this example. Just because your child has autism doesn't mean they will be awake at night. The solutions for this always seem to be around strategies that keep your child asleep. Do you see all those things that I listed there as the solutions? They're just aids. They don't teach your child how to sleep and regulate their sleeping. That's the different perspective. I've talked a lot. If you've come to my lives or watched my lives, I've talked a lot about looking at your problems from a different perspective rather than trying to solve each problem on its own, like sleeping or eating or playing or coping or toileting, any of those things. If you've got a different strategy, solution, medication, therapy, therapist for each one, then you have got a lot of problems to solve. You've got a lot on your plate. And if you have more than one child with autism, you have to double or triple the amount of time you're spending on trying to solve problems. And to what end? So, if you're struggling with your child's sleeping, eating, self help, coping, toileting, you've got way too much on your plate and you're likely frustrated, worried, stressed, you're overbooked, not taking care of yourself, and possibly managing your neighbors as well, like that woman's post. And this doesn't mean that if you like book a massage that that's going to change your life. Yes, Autumn, I get it. I'm not telling you to like go out and do self-care and that's going to change everything. Have you ever heard that phrase about repeating the same thing over and over again and getting the same result? This is what I could never understand in education and in healthcare. Um, no one seems to have the answer for autism. Just strategies that try to minimize behavior or teach your child how to act. Um, why do we keep looking at these strategies like they're the only options? And then believing like if they don't work, well, then there's nothing else, or add something else on. There's so many parents out there in crisis without help. I've had parents tell me that the therapists have run out of ideas and they can't help. Why is solving problems with autism like throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what works? I challenge you to think differently. Flip what you know on its head and think about autism differently. The problems, all of those things, the sleeping, the eating, the self-help, the coping, the playing, the toileting, those are symptoms of a lack of self-regulation, right? Right, Autumn? You actually only have one problem. Your child needs self-regulation to sleep, to eat, to play, to cope, to toilet. I challenge you to look differently at your child and how they're struggling and wonder if they could self regulate, how would life change? And if you're thinking right now that this approach wouldn't work for your child, then you have a belief that is creating a barrier. Your child with autism can self regulate. Autism doesn't have to be hard. And if you give them the space to learn to self regulate, it's a game changer for everyone. I have a short video from a group member. How? Stacy, here, I'm going to show you. I have a short video from a group member, someone in our group who's one of the families that I described earlier. They were happy to talk about how I helped them in a Q&A and how they didn't even know they were in crisis until things got better. They are happy for me to share the video. If you'd like to see it, just type Q&A video in the chat there and I'll send it to you. I can assure you with a different perspective and a different approach, things can change and things can get better. Autism doesn't have to be hard. I'll send those videos to all of you. Reach out if you want to talk. I'm here to talk to anyone and everyone. Let me know if you'd like to see that video. I'll send it right now. Have a good night, everyone. See you next week. Bye.